Hello again. This is Annie Rudin with Pronunciation Pro, and I wanted to take a minute and make a quick video and address a question that is commonly asked by my students. And it's this: is it possible for a non-native English speaker to learn to speak English with a 100% native accent? Okay, and I know this is a question that comes up frequently for non-native English speakers, so I want to address that today. So I've been doing accent training for more than 11 years now. And I've gotten this question over the years, and I've had different answers depending on kind of the level of experience that I've had with it. And now that I have worked for 11 years, working with hundreds of different clients, here's the answer that I have for you. The answer is yes, it is possible, but it is not common. And here is why. So yes, it is possible because you see examples of this on TV, in movies, with musicians. You can hear that people who are not from the United States can act and sing and speak with a full 100% native sounding American accent, okay? So it is possible. However, in my experience, here's what's most common. What's most common is that if someone sounds native, then they most likely grew up around native sounding or native English speakers. So they've had that exposure growing up. So they have access to all of the sounds of American English. They've made those connections in their brain early on in life, and they're able to adapt and make that connection with the sounds of and rhythm of American English. So they are able to sound native. I've also then seen the other type of people are those who are actors or musicians who have spent a significant amount of time and effort and money into training to help them sound 100% native. So I'm guessing at least 4, 5, 6, 10 hours a day, where that is their profession, that is their main focus, is to get the American accent, okay? So there's a significant amount of resources, time and resources, that go into learning the American accent. Okay, it's their profession. Okay, so why I say it's not common is because most people are not actors, actresses, musicians, and are not willing to put in that time and money into that specialized training. Okay, here's what I do see though, and I've worked with hundreds of, if not thousands, of non-native English speakers who are doctors and lawyers and pharmacists and accountants and a number of different professionals who are non-native English speakers, and it's important to them to be clear in their pronunciation, clear in the way they speak English, and to feel confident in the way they speak English. This is the focus of my program with accent training, because that's what most people are willing to put the time and effort into. So, and that's about 30 minutes a day. And depending on your level, it depends on how long it will take to kind of get to that level of I feel clear in my pronunciation and I feel confident in the way that I speak English. So if you've ever heard of the 80-20 rule, which is also called the Pareto principle, you'll understand this concept. If you're not familiar with the 80-20 rule, I'd say go Google it and look that up, because you find this 80-20 rule in business, in all of life, economics. I mean, it comes up very frequently. But the 80-20 rule is basically that 80% of your effort or your results will come from 20% of your efforts, okay? And I see this 80-20 rule in accent training in that it takes about 20% of your effort to achieve 80% accuracy as far as sounding 80% native, okay? But as you reach that 80%, so that, that's very possible, and that's kind of the focus of the training that I do, is to get our students to that 80% level. Now, to get from 80 to 100, we have that last 20%. And so we see the 80-20 rule kind of flipped, where 80% of your effort will go to achieving that last 20% of the accent, the American accent. So that's why I say it's very possible to learn the American accent, because if you're willing to put 80% of your time and effort and resources into that 20%, yes, it is possible. But most people are not willing to do that. And most people, it's not important to do that. So like in my program, our goal is to be clear, so that language is not a barrier, that your accent and your pronunciation is not a barrier. You're not being asked to repeat yourself. You're able to speak very clearly, and your listener is able to understand very clearly. And also that you feel confident that your accent, even though you have still an accent, it's not making you feel a lack of confidence or making you feel like you don't belong. We address confidence in a very specific and a very unique way within my program that helps you kind of address kind of where those feelings are coming from, that lack of confidence and where that's coming from. And we focus it on more of like a mindset than the way that we speak. So confidence, we talk about confidence in a very different way that helps you shift your mindset so that although you still have an accent, you can still feel confident, okay? So I'm not gonna dive into that too much in this video, but we do address that so that as you develop those skills of clear communication, you're also developing skills of feeling very confident, even with an accent. Okay, so I also want to point out that for those who have achieved, that higher level of I sound 100% native, like those actors, actresses, and musicians, you'll also notice that when they're doing their craft, like singing or acting, they sound native, but then when they go to do an interview, their accent comes back. And this is called code switching, okay? And it's a skill set that people develop and our students develop where when they're in certain situations, they can speak more clearly and accurately in the American accent. And then when it doesn't matter as much, they can kind of switch back into more of an accented English. So that's called code switching. And you'll notice that most actors and actresses don't stay in their American accent all the time because it takes a strong amount of energy to be able to stay in that accent. One example that I thought was fascinating is I used to watch the TV show House with Hugh Laurie, and I watched the show quite a bit, and then I saw him on a late night show doing an interview, and I could not believe that he was British. I had no idea that he was British because in the TV show, he had an amazing American accent, and he just nailed it. Okay? But in his interview, he was obviously from England. And so he had developed that skill set of code switching, and no doubt that took a significant amount of time and resources to achieve, okay? So my answer to that question, can I sound 100% native? Yes, but it depends on if it's worth it to you. So what I usually tell my students is that once you achieve that 80%, which we really work hard towards, you have to decide for yourself, is that last 20% worth it to me? Or is my time and effort and resources better spent on other areas of personal development? Maybe it's public speaking, maybe it's more of those interpersonal communication skills. Maybe it's in the specific craft that you do, and some of the skill sets that are required within your profession. So you have to decide that for yourself. So think about that 80-20 rule and how it applies to accent training, and kind of see, like, what are my goals. And one question that I do tend to ask my students is if they're very set on learning, making sure they're sounding 100% native, I do ask them, why is that important to them? Does it have more to do with how they view themselves and how they think others view them? Or is it because that skill set of sounding 100% native is truly that important to put all that time and energy into? Okay? So I want you to ask yourself that. Why is it that I want to sound 100% native? Has it more to do with more of a mindset and how I want to feel about myself? Or is it important in my career? Okay? So think about that, and I hope this helps, and I'll see you again in the next video.